The whisper of the drums. The village of Machoma sat quietly at the edge of the thick umber forest. Ancient trees wrapped around it like a giant's arms, holding secrets no one dared to ask. Birds sang from high branches, and the wind carried the smell of herbs, river clay, and roasted cassava. The sun poured gold on the mud brick huts, and everything felt peaceful on the surface. But the elders knew better. Peace like this didn't come for free. Among the villagers was a 17-year-old girl named Adisa. Her skin was the color of the earth after the rain, and her eyes sparkled with curiosity. She had always asked too many questions. Why did the owls hoot only at certain times? Why were there carvings of snakes on the sacred stones? Why did her grandmother always look toward the forest at dusk, lips moving in silent prayers? Adisa was raised by her grandmother, Mama Kenga, the village healer. Mama Kenga was respected by all, her potions healed fever, her hands delivered babies, and her chants brought rain during dry spells. But behind her wise smile was a heaviness that never lifted. She never spoke about Adisa's parents. She only said, "The past walks behind us, but we must not turn around." Lately, things had changed in Machoma. Crops had grown faster than ever. Maize and millet rose tall, fat and golden. The river brought more fish than usual, and wild animals returned to the nearby forest, the ones long thought to have left. A leopard was seen drinking from the stream without harming a soul. Some villagers rejoiced. Others whispered, eyes wide with fear. "Too much blessing too fast," said the village blacksmith. Nature doesn't give without asking for something in return. One afternoon, Adisa helped Mama Kenga grind dried roots. "Grandmother," she said, "why does the forest feel louder? Like it's speaking?" Mama Kenga paused. Her hands froze over the mortar. "The forest always speaks," she said, "but not everyone knows how to listen." That night, Adisa couldn't sleep. She lay on her mat staring at the thatched roof above her, when suddenly, boom, boom, boom. The sound came like a heartbeat. Drums. They echoed faintly from deep within the forest. Not the playful rhythms of a festival. Not even a warrior's beat. These drums were slow, heavy, ancient. Adisa sat up straight. "Grandmother, do you hear that?" Mama Kenga didn't answer. She was already standing by the doorway, eyes wide, face pale as ash. The next morning, the entire village buzzed. People gathered in small groups, whispering about the drums. "The Snake King is stirring," someone muttered. "Impossible. That's just a tale." "No. My grandmother told me when she was a girl, the drums sounded the same, then a storm came, and 3 people disappeared into the forest." Mama Kenga called Adisa to her hut early. She handed her a large calabash filled with water and herbs. "Wash in this," she said. "For what?" "You must prepare," Mama Kenga replied, her voice tight. "The ritual is near." "What ritual?" Adisa asked. But Mama Kenga said no more. She busied herself with her medicine jars, crushing bitter leaves, humming songs Adisa had never heard before. That evening, as Adisa walked past the elder's hut, she heard voices. The door was slightly open. She paused, hidden in the shadow of the mango tree. Inside, she recognized the voices, Mama Kenga and the village chief, old Baba Inayo. "You said you would never tell her," Baba Inayo whispered. "I had no choice," Mama Kenga replied. "She must be prepared. The drums are a warning. He is coming. She's just a child. She was promised before she was born. The pact was sealed in blood." Adisa's heart raced. Her ears rang. Promised. Pact. Blood. What were they talking about? She ran home, her mind spinning. That night, Mama Kenga didn't come home. Adisa waited, then finally drifted into a troubled sleep. In her dream, she stood at the edge of the forest. The trees parted. A giant serpent, its scales like sunlight and thunderclouds, rose before her. Its eyes, golden and endless, stared into her soul. "You were promised," it hissed. "You are mine." Adisa woke with a scream. The next morning, Mama Kenga sat by the fire, eyes red from crying. "I know what you heard," she said softly. "Come sit." Adisa didn't move. "Tell me the truth." Mama Kenga nodded slowly. "Many years ago, when our people were starving, when disease was taking even the young, I did what I thought would save us." She looked away. "I entered the forest and called on the Snake King, ruler of the Underearth Kingdom. I begged for help. He agreed, but only if I gave something in return." "What did you give?" Adisa asked, her voice trembling. "You." Adisa staggered backward. "You gave me. Like a goat. Like a pot of beans." "I didn't want to," Mama Kenga sobbed. "But the village needed saving. He said you would be born with light in your spirit. You would survive. You would become queen." Adisa shook her head. "I don't want to be a queen. Not of snakes. I'm not yours to give." Mama Kenga reached for her, but Adisa pulled away. "The drums are calling," Mama Kenga said quietly. "He is coming to collect his bride." Outside, the sky grew dark though the sun was high. Thunder rumbled far away. The wind picked up, rattling the trees, carrying with it a strange hiss, like scales brushing against bark. Adisa stepped outside. The villagers had gathered. All eyes turned to the forest. From the shadows emerged a creature, taller than a man, longer than 10. His serpent body shimmered with gold and green, eyes glowing like twin fires. He wore a crown of twisted vines and bones. Oba Ofi, the Snake King. Adisa stood frozen. Her breath caught in her throat. He did not speak. He only pointed at her. A single tear rolled down Mama Kenga's cheek. "Adisa," she whispered, "the time has come." And in that moment, Adisa knew her life would never be the same. The pact of blood and roots. Long before Adisa was born, the village of Machoma was dying. The rivers had dried. The rains had stopped. Crops withered to dust, and children wailed with empty stomachs. Even the goats bleated thinly before falling over, ribs poking through their skin. People buried more than they fed. The drums were silent. The gods, it seemed, had turned their faces away. A much younger Mama Kenga, then just Kenga, stood outside her dying grandmother's hut. Her own baby had died in her arms the month before. Her skin had turned dull, her voice a whisper. She remembered standing at the edge of the forest, hands trembling, heart full of fury. "No God hears us," she cried. "So let me speak to the ones who live below." No one dared follow her into the umber forest that day. Everyone said the trees swallowed those who disrespected boundaries. But Kenga didn't care. She walked barefoot through thorns and fog, following an ancient path lined with forgotten carvings, serpents, vines, eyes without pupils. She reached the sacred clearing, a place the elders had long forbidden. There, beneath a twisted fig tree, she knelt and made a deep cut across her palm. "I offer blood," she whispered. "I offer myself." The earth trembled. From the ground rose Oba Ofi, the Serpent King. He was beautiful and terrifying, his lower half a massive golden serpent, his upper half the face of a man carved from midnight stone, with hair like riding vines and eyes that glowed amber. "You called me," he hissed. Kenga bowed her head, her lips shaking. "I beg for help. My people are dying." "And what will you give, daughter of Machoma?" "Take me. My soul. My life." Oba Ofi tilted his crowned head. "Your life is short. Your soul already broken. But your future, that has power." Kenga's heart pounded. What do you want? He slithered closer, wrapping around the tree. Give me your first granddaughter. At 18, she will be mine, my bride. In return, your village will thrive. Crops will grow. Disease will fade. Rain will come. Kenga hesitated. One child, he whispered. For the life of all Machoma. She wept. But she agreed. They sealed the deal with blood and earth. The forest swallowed her scream as Oba Ofi disappeared beneath the roots. Years later, Adisa was born during a rainstorm so fierce it flooded the fields. Babies stopped dying. The forest grew greener. People forgot the hunger. But Mama Kenga never forgot the price. Now, in the present, Adisa stood in the center of the hut, staring at her grandmother with eyes full of fire and betrayal. You gave me away before I was born, she cried. Mama Kenga sat on the mat, her body older than ever, her voice soft. I was desperate. I thought I could protect you somehow. That maybe he would forget. But the drums never forget, Adisa. They call for what was promised. Adisa's fist clenched. You had no right. I had no choice. Yes, you did. You chose them over me. Mama Kenga bowed her head. If I could undo it. But you can't. Adisa's voice broke. You gave me like a gift. Like I wasn't a person. They sat in silence for a long time. Outside, the wind blew hot and dry. The birds had stopped singing. Finally, Adisa spoke again, her voice low. What happens if I refuse? Mama Kenga's eyes filled with tears. Then he would take everything back. The rains, the crops, lives. He will burn the roots of Machoma to ash. Adisa closed her eyes. Her heart screamed, but her mouth stayed shut. She hated her grandmother. She loved her. She was terrified. And yet, she could not let her people die. The rituals began 3 days later. The women of the village led Adisa into the sacred hut, built from palm leaves and stone. There, they washed her body in water mixed with crushed baobab bark, white clay, and petals from the moonflower, a bloom that only opened at night. They braided her hair with cowrie shells and painted her face with red earth and white lines to show her path. She was not allowed to speak. Only to listen. At night, she sat alone by the fire as Mama Kenga chanted old songs in a language few still remembered. You are brave, her grandmother whispered. You are stronger than I ever was. Adisa didn't answer. She didn't feel brave. She felt like a bird in a cage made of vines and prayers. On the 7th day, the entire village gathered at the edge of the forest. The sky was unusually clear. Stars blinked down like cold eyes. Even the moon hid behind a cloud. Adisa stood tall. She wore a robe of deep indigo, embroidered with golden snakes. Around her neck hung a necklace of sacred stones, passed down from the first healer of Machoma. A drumbeat began. Slow. Deep. The same rhythm as that night when the forest had called. The elders lit fires, forming a wide circle. Smoke rose like spirits dancing in the sky. Suddenly, the air shifted. The flames flickered. A hiss echoed, low, deep, and ancient. Then the trees parted. Out came Oba Ofi, in his full serpent form. He was massive. Taller than any hut, his body gleamed gold, silver, and emerald. His scales shimmered like water under moonlight. His eyes were twin suns, and around his neck hung bones, human bones. The villagers dropped to their knees, heads bowed. Some wept. Others trembled. But Adisa stood still. Oba Ofi's voice cowed through the air like smoke. I have come for what is mine. Mama Kenga lowered her head. She is ready. Adisa swallowed hard. Her knees shook, but she didn't kneel. Oba Ofi slithered closer. You are beautiful, he said. Wiser than your age. You carry fire in your blood. I didn't choose this, Adisa said, her voice strong but shaking. No, the Snake King said, eyes glowing. But fate chose you. You are not only a bride. You are a bridge between worlds. He extended one clawed hand, not to grab, but to invite. The drums stopped. The fire dimmed. Everyone waited. And Adisa stood in silence, one step away from the shadows into the Serpent Kingdom. The forest swallowed Adisa like a moth. The firelights from the village faded behind her, and ahead, only shadows stretched between tall trees. The air was cool but heavy, full of whispers and the scent of damp earth. Beside her slithered Oba-Ofi, his scales glowing faintly in the dark, each movement silent and smooth like wind over water. She wanted to run. She wanted to scream. But she walked. At the foot of a great tree, so ancient its trunk bent like the spine of an old man, Oba-Ofi stopped. This is the gateway, he said. Adisa's breath caught. Where does it lead? Below. To my world. To your new home. The roots of the tree pulsed with light, green veins twisting over back. With one motion, Oba-Ofi touched the base of the tree with his claw. The ground opened, not like a hole but like a door folding backward, revealing a spiral staircase made of bone, vine, and stone that shimmered. Adisa hesitated. Will I ever come back? Oba-Ofi's eyes glowed. You may. But you will not be the same. She stepped forward. And descended. The stairs twisted deeper than she expected. No sound echoed behind her except her own breath. Then, suddenly, the space burst open, like walking into a new sky. Adisa stood at the edge of a vast underground kingdom. The walls of the cavern pulsed with living light, crystals in blues, greens, and golds. Rivers of glowing silver ran through the earth like liquid moonlight. Trees with glass leaves grew upside down from the ceiling. And everywhere, snakes of all sizes slithered through the air, on land, and even through the glowing waters. Some had wings. Some wore jewelry. Some had faces that almost looked human. It was terrifying. It was beautiful. It was alive. This is Ophidian, Oba-Ofi said. The kingdom below. Adisa's eyes widened. It's real. He nodded. As real as the sun above. They crossed a bridge made of braided vines. Serpent guards bowed as they passed. But not all faces were friendly. Some whispered. Some narrowed their eyes at her human scent. She does not belong, said one voice. She is a surface dweller, hissed another. Oba-Ofi stopped and turned. His voice echoed like thunder. She is chosen. By fate. By pact. By me. The whispers fell silent. Later, in the heart of a temple carved from stone and gold, Adisa was led to a chamber of soft moss and warm stones. No bars. No chains. Just space. That night, she sat alone beside a still pool of glowing water. Then, behind her, she heard footsteps. Human footsteps. She turned. Oba-Ofi stood there, not in his serpent form, but as a man. He was tall, with skin dark as night and eyes like molten gold. His hair curled like vines, and he wore robes that shimmered like a snake's skin. I take this form when the sun sleeps, he said. To speak with you properly. Adisa stared. Why are you showing me this? Because I want truth between us. She didn't know what to say. Her heart beat fast. He sat beside her, far enough not to frighten. I did not ask for a bride, he said softly. I asked for a bond. My grandmother said. She offered you. And I accepted. Because your blood carries old magic. Because your spirit burns bright. But I will not force your hand. Adisa looked into his eyes. They held more than power. They held sorrow. Then why bring me here? Because the pact lives in the soil now. If you leave, the magic that protects your village will die. Slowly. In silence. The crops will rot. The water will turn bitter. So I have no choice, she whispered. You always have a choice. Even if both paths are painful. Adisa looked away. Her fist clenched. Her mind spun. I won't stay forever, she said. Oba Ofi nodded. Stay a little. Learn. See with your own eyes. She sighed. Then. I'll stay. For now. The days in Ophidian passed like dreams. Adisa was given a guide, Nima, a small serpent girl with wide green eyes and a tongue that flicked playfully. Nima had 2 tiny horns and a tail that glowed at the tip. You're not like the others, she said on their first walk. Most humans scream. Adisa smiled weakly. I still might. She learned quickly that this world moved with purpose. The serpents weren't just creatures, they were guardians of roots, soil, memory. They kept the balance of things. Every movement, every whisper, had meaning. She studied their customs, the dance of scales, the ritual of shedding, the language of his impulse. At night, she practiced their tongue, rolling her R's until they sounded like sliders. She also learned the link between spirit and serpent, how snakes carried messages through vibrations in the ground, how they could taste emotion in the air, how their ancestors lived not in stories but in the skin they shed. But not everyone welcomed her. One day, a group of older serpent warriors blocked her path near the healing garden. Your kind burns the forest, said one, bearing silver fangs. You walk with loud feet, said another. Adisa stood tall. I came by pact. But I'll earn my place. They laughed. Nima hissed back. She saved my ex-sister. Show respect. The warriors sneered but moved aside. Adisa's heart thudded. She was tired of being stared at like prey. But she wouldn't give up. Then it happened. While exploring the lower caves with Nima and 2 young serpents, the ground shook. Stones fell. A wall collapsed, trapping one of the younglings, Toru, beneath a heap of glowing rubble. The others screamed. Adisa didn't think. She pushed through the dust, scraping her hands, lifting stones. The serpents tried to help but were too small. She ignored the pain. Her arms bled. Her legs ached. At last, she pulled Toru out. The child's tail was bent, but he was alive. Nima stared at Adisa with wide eyes. You're strong. Like a mountain. Toru whimpered. You saved me. When they returned to the upper levels, the story had already spread. The human had saved the child. Not with magic. But with heart. That evening, Oba Ofi summoned her to the Temple of Roots. You've done more than learn, he said. You've connected. Adisa bowed her head, unsure of what she felt. I just did what anyone would. No, he said. You did what you would. That is why they begin to see. She met his eyes. What happens now? That depends on you. Will you stay longer? Or return above? She looked at her hands, still bruised from the cave-in. She thought of Mama Kenga, and the villagers. She thought of Nima and Toru. She felt torn. But something inside her whispered. Not fear. Not duty. Belonging. I'll stay, she said softly. Not because of the pact. But because I want to understand. Oba Ofi smiled, gently. Then welcome, daughter of both worlds. The queen of scales and soil. Adisa no longer felt like a guest in the kingdom beneath the earth. Each morning, she rose before the glowing light vines dimmed, her fingers brushing over soft moss floors as she greeted the new day in Ophidian. The serpents greeted her too, not with suspicion now, but with bows and gentle nods. She was learning how to be more than just a visitor. She was becoming a bridge. With the blessing of Oba Ofi, Adisa began blending what she knew from the surface, the healing herbs, the sacred chants Mama Kenga once taught her, with the deep, living magic of the Serpent Kingdom. She discovered that certain roots, when crushed and sung to in the serpent tongue, could heal deeper wounds than any poultice. She taught them how ash from burned banana leaves could soothe fever in serpent children. They, in turn, showed her how to pull illness from a body by laying hands on sacred stones warmed in river light. The Temple of Roots became a place of shared wisdom. Humans and serpents no longer felt so different inside those walls. Oba Ofi noticed. "You carry both bloods," he said one evening, as they stood beneath the ceiling trees. "You were born of earth, but you understand the pulse beneath it." Adisa looked up at him. His human form stood tall and calm, his golden eyes glowing in the dark. "I was afraid," she admitted, "but now. I think I was always meant to walk both paths." Oba Ofi's voice softened. "I have walked alone for many centuries. Ruler. Guardian. Judge. Always with power. But never with peace. Until now." They stood in silence. Their hands, once strangers, now met gently. And for the first time in both their lives, there was warmth between worlds. But not all was peaceful. Far above, in the forest of Machoma, trouble had begun to stir. Foreign hunters, strangers with loud machines and greedy eyes, had entered the sacred groves. They trampled through medicinal plants, carved into trees with ancient spirit markings, and took more than they needed. The animals that once returned now fled again. The rivers ran muddy. The balance that Adisa had helped build was breaking. Word reached her through the river echoes, the serpent method of receiving news from the surface. Oba Ofi's face darkened when he heard. "Their greed would destroy not only the forest but the bonds we made." Adisa clenched her fist. "Then we must act. Not with war, but with words." "You would speak to them?" he asked. "Those who see you as nothing but a girl, or worse, a prize to be taken." "I will not let fear choose for me," she said. "If I am the bridge, then let me speak." Oba Ofi nodded. "Then you will go, with our blessing. But not alone." That night, as she prepared to journey to the surface for the first time since her descent, Adisa lit a candle of white ash and serpent scale. She closed her eyes and prayed to the spirits of soil, of sky, of family. And in her dream, Mama Kenga came. The old woman stood beneath the baobab tree, her back hunched, her eyes full of tears. "I was wrong," Mama Kenga whispered. "I gave you away, but I did not know what I was giving up." Adisa stepped closer in the dream. "You saved the village. You did what you thought was right." "I broke the line of choice," Mama Kenga said. "But you have rebuilt it, with your heart. Forgive me, child." Adisa took her grandmother's hand in the dream and nodded. "I forgive you. And I love you." When she awoke, her cheeks were wet. But her spirit felt whole. On the surface, Adisa, flanked by serpent messengers cloaked in glamour, walked into the village square of Machoma. Gasps erupted. Some people wept. Others fell to their knees. Is it truly her? She walks with the snake spirits. But Adisa raised her hand. "I come not as a spirit. I come as your sister, your daughter, your healer." Mama Kenga, weak and older now, ran forward with trembling arms. "My child." Adisa caught her in an embrace that felt like years of silence breaking apart. "Tell them," Adisa said to the village. "The forest is crying. And we must protect it, not just for the serpents, but for our children." She told them of the hunters, the damage, the pact, and the magic now tied to every root. The elders listened. The youth vowed to defend the sacred groves. And as Adisa left again, descending with her serpents back into the earth, she left behind a fire of hope burning in Machoma's heart. But fate was not yet done testing her. Just days after her return to Ophidian, the cavern walls began to shake. A deep groaning echoed from the bones of the earth. Crystals shattered. Water tunnels cracked. Entire chambers collapsed. Earthquake. Panic erupted. Serpent families scattered. Eggs rolled from nests. Bridges collapsed. Adisa and Oba Ofi rushed to the Temple of Roots as cracks opened in the floor. "This is not natural," Oba Ofi growled. "Something, or someone has disturbed the foundation." Adisa placed her hands on the ground. She closed her eyes. She listened. And beneath the tremble of rock, she heard it. Not just movement, but pain. The forest roots, torn by machines above, had lost their anchor. The balance was crumbling. "I need sacred ash," Adisa shouted. "And golden moss." She ran with Nima and the older serpents to the damaged bridges. She sang both in serpent tongue and human chant, songs of binding, of holding, of love. Oba Ofi used his power to weave stone threads into broken walls. The healers shaped light barriers to hold back floods. Adisa mixed the ash with root sap and painted it over the cracked pillars. Where human hands ended, serpent magic began. The ground calmed. The kingdom held. And for the first time in their long history, Ophidian was saved not by one people, but by two. Later, in the grand hollow beneath the heart tree, Oba Ofi stood before all. He raised his staff of bone and vine. "Today," he declared, "we name a queen, not of blood, nor of pact, but of heart." He turned to Adisa. "You have walked both above and below. You have healed the soil, the soul, and the serpent. You are our bridge, our hope." He knelt and placed a crown upon her head, not made of gold, but of braided root, crystal scale, and a single glowing feather from the dream serpent. "Adisa of Machoma," he said, voice strong, "I name you queen of scales and soil." The chamber erupted in hisses of praise. "Long live the queen." Bridge of two worlds. Adisa's hands trembled as she touched the crown. She looked around at the faces, once suspicious, now full of love. She had been a sacrifice. She had become a student. Now, she was a queen. But deep inside, she knew. The real test still waited. Above. Where the hunters still roamed. And the final battle for balance had yet to come. Harmony of the two worlds. When Adisa rose from the earth once more, she did not walk alone. By her side stood Oba Ofi, not in his mighty serpent form that curled through caverns like thunder, but as a man. His human shape was tall and graceful, his skin rich and gleaming like polished stone. His eyes glowed softly, twin suns lit with sorrow and strength. He wore robes woven from serpent silk and moss threads, and his presence pulled the wind into stillness. Behind them came serpent emissaries cloaked in enchanted cloth, their eyes curious, their heads held high. The drums in Machoma stopped mid-beat. Children hid behind walls. The old women gasped. Men reached for spears. He's come for blood. They've bewitched our daughter. But Adisa stepped forward, her hands raised, not in fear, but in peace. "People of Machoma," she said, her voice strong and steady, "you once knew me as the girl marked for sacrifice. But I come to you now not as an offering, but as your queen." There was silence. The forest itself seemed to pause, holding its breath. "I have walked beneath the earth and learned the language of serpents. I have seen their tears. I have touched their fears. And I have brought back truth, not to shame you, but to guide us all." Oba Ofi bowed deeply before the villagers. "I did not seek a bride," he said in a voice that hummed like deep drums. "I only answered a cry for help. It was your grandmother who came to me, not for power, but for water, for healing, for the life of our people. I gave it freely. I asked only a bond, not a prison. A soft, trembling voice broke through the silence. Let me see her, please. It was Mama Kenga. She was being carried on a mat of woven reeds, her body thin as bone, her hair white as the ash tree. Her eyes, once fiery, now flickered like dying candles. Adisa ran to her and knelt at her side. My child, Mama Kenga whispered. You returned, not in chains, but in light. Tears welled in Adisa's eyes. I found a path through pain, Nani. But it was you who taught me to listen to the soil, to speak to leaves, to feel the wind's warning. I just walked further. Mama Kenga took a deep breath. Then let me do one last thing right. She lifted her trembling hand and placed it on Adisa's chest. With the spirits as witness, I pass my mantle. Let the line of earth wisdom live on, in you. A golden light flowed from her palm into Adisa's heart. And as Mama Kenga's eyes closed for the last time, a hush spread through Machoma. It was the silence of a soul returning home. In the weeks that followed, Adisa became more than a queen, she became a uniters. She called together the elders of Machoma and the serpent emissaries from Ophidian. They met beneath the baobab tree that stood between the village and the forest. They built a round house with no corners, where no voice could be hidden, and no face could be shunned. We will not hide from each other anymore, Adisa said. This forest belongs to both worlds. From that day, a new council was formed, the Circle of Soil and Scale. It was made up of human healers, serpent sages, hunters who had learned restraint, and young ones from both sides who carried no fear, only questions. Together, they set new rules for the forest. No tree would be cut without prayer. No animal taken without thanks. Every child would learn both the chants of earth and the songs of serpents. At night, fires danced between roots and stones as humans and serpents told stories of the days when they feared each other and how they chose to stop. And when storms came, they faced them side by side. Adisa and Oba Ofi did not return fully to the underworld, nor did they settle completely on the surface. Instead, they lived between. In a stone house wrapped in vines, halfway up a hill, halfway down a tunnel. The door opened to the stars. The floor sank toward glowing roots. They had children, 3, born under the eclipse moon, whose eyes shimmered with secrets and laughter. Their daughter, Naya, could charm snakes with a single hum. Their son, Tolu, planted trees with hands that glowed. And the youngest, Isai, often disappeared for hours to play with the moon-swallower serpent and return with riddles no one could solve. These children grew up with no borders in their minds. To them, magic was not strange. Nature was not enemy. And love was not limited to shape or skin. They were the future both worlds had feared, and now embraced. One evening, many years later, Adisa stood at the edge of Machoma. Drums echoed through the village, not with warning, but with joy. The people danced barefoot, painting their faces in spirals of blue and green. Serpents slithered gently between dancers, offering fruit. Children braided flowers into the hair of snake folk. Elders sang both human and serpent hymns in perfect harmony. It was the festival of the Great Shedding, the day both worlds celebrated how far they had come. Adisa looked up as Oba Ofi stepped beside her, his hand finding hers. You did it, he said softly. We did it, she replied. But more than that, they believed. In the distance, little Isi chased after a glowing lizard, giggling as the creature darted up a tree. You think they'll keep this peace? Oba Ofi asked, a shadow in his voice. Adisa smiled. Peace isn't something you keep. It's something you grow. Like a seed. Like a child. You water it, speak to it, protect it. And one day, it gives shade. A gust of wind passed between them, gentle and warm. For the first time in generations, no one ran from it. Far below, in the resting heart of Ophidian, the roots pulsed with quiet song. Far above, in the highest branches of the sacred baobab, owls hooted not in warning, but in blessing. And between sky and soil, two hearts beat together. One born of earth. One born of serpent. Bound not by blood, but by choice. By love. By truth. Final message. The drums of Machoma no longer sound in fear. They rise in joy, echoing through leaves and tunnels, past caves and clouds. They tell the story of a girl once given away, who became a queen of both worlds. They sing of forgiveness, of wisdom, of unity. And in every beat is the message. The greatest magic is not in power, but in choosing peace.